Wanna touchdown in your end zone. You got a reputation in the streets, saying so fine but a cold heart. She leave it shaking while you're in the streets. Not playing, heard you looking for a fella.
Right, welcome to the Slant Podcast. Been a minute before drinks. Technical difficulties slowed down our last one, and then just life gets in the way as it does. And Geordie's doesn't want to give away any of his intel on the rookies, even though he's just traded away all his rookie picks. So that was good of him, and he's come back now that he's got no picks and he can spill no goss. How are we, Jordan?
Yeah, good, man. Yeah. I think probably realizing that I wasn't going to be able to get Elijah Moore in the second round anymore just set me into a state of despair, and I just really had to offload all of those picks. It was a dark day.
Fair enough. I'm not an Eli truther, but I know there's plenty of them, and they've snuck to about the 111s possibly where I think he might go, but that'd be interesting. All right, so where we left off last time is we covered the later round running backs and covered up to about Michael Carter, counting down. So today's one will cover the top four, which is, in our opinion, well, draft capital-wise, is Trey Sermon, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, and Najee Harris. So we'll start off with Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon is my boy. I'm a OU fan through and through. He was amazing for OU. The problem was we had just a cycle of running backs every year. Like, we had players like Rodney Anderson, who was good in school when he was healthy, which was the problem. Kennedy Brooks was around at the same time, and he was lit. By memory, we had Ramondre Stevenson as well, who came around for one of those years. He was suspended for PEDS, but he was the best runner on that team. And unfortunately, other defenses had to find out about that when he was on the field. They had a battler like TJ Pledger, and then Seth McGowan came in and out, but wasn't a whole lot. But I guess what I'm trying to say is Trey Sermon, like, there was other guys in the backfield every single year, and he decided to dip and go to Ohio State for his first year to improve his draft stock, and boy, did he do that. He absolutely lit it up. Towards the back end of the year, he started there in a very slow slump, and I got excited because I was like, cool, sweet, I'm going to be able to sneak him in the third round of rookie drafts, might even be able to get him in the fourth round. And then he decided to peel off those games where he got 112 yards rushing, 332, 193. And at that moment, I realized I was no longer getting Trey Sermon. So was pretty gutted about that.
Yeah, and it was I guess it was a pretty meteoric ascent on a global stage as well. We're looking at the game against Clemson. That was a pretty, he really exploded there. And to be fair, if he hadn't gotten injured in the championship game, we could have been talking about him being the three, because really a lot of people would, Etienne had really dropped off a lot of people's draft boards. Was really plummeting down. So I think you touched on it, the fact that at OU, especially 2018, he was so prolific, 947 yards, and that was all at the same time with, Kyler Murray had over 1,000 yards, Kennedy Brooks had 1,000 yards rushing. So, they were just eating it up. And I think even, Rodney Anderson,
he was good when he was healthy.
When he was healthy. But, I guess the thing is, he had a 2019 season. For all intents and purposes, the tape from his time at Oklahoma looks really, really good. You're looking at somebody who, in between seasons, went and worked with the Footwork King, but basically, worked on his ability, worked on that footwork. The thing that you'll see from him on those tape breakdowns is the ability to get those 6-yard runs, which are just classic NFL runs, which are going to change a game, which they could turn to somebody like him as a lead back, and he will do the job.
Yeah, I think another thing with Trey Sermon that everyone kind of got a bit horny about was the situation that he landed in, right? So we notoriously always everyone says stay away from Kyle Shanahan backfields, right? Just running back on a committee. Yeah. And then, but like, you match the talent in Sermon up with the situation in San Fran, and it just became a super sexy spot, right? Because they've got a great O-line. Their rushing every year is insanely nice. And post our last recording and post the draft, Mostert's injured again, made of glass, so likely probably won't even start the season. Something happened to him. But more importantly for me, Jeffrey Wilson's gone down with an injury, and he's out for 4 to 6 months. He's not expected to be there at the start. I know people keep talking about Elijah Mitchell to come in the backfield. I think they got Wayne Gorman and stuff, who was a fine backup last year in New York. But like his path now is so clear to not necessarily taking over the backfield, but he now gets his crack. The problem was everyone was worried about was the fact that Mostert was going to be the best running back there when he's healthy, fine, because he's fast. But then Jeffrey Wilson at the back end of last year looked so nice that he was also going to compete, and Sermon was going to have to compete up against him for a 1B spot. Now with him out, why I think that's so good for Sermon is he now gets like to prove it. He's going to get his crack, which was my worry when he got drafted there.
Yeah, and I think those are the developments that have changed Sermon's. I guess they've changed the opportunity, and I think I probably drafted him in one of our dynasty leagues about a week before that news, and next thing you know, I mean, I've got one guy who's offering me the world just to try and get Sermon. I guess the thing is, we now know. You're right. You talked about the situation with Wilson. Look, Gorman's never been able to really hold off anybody of any decent ability. Look, he was replaced in New York by Devontae Booker this year, so that gives you a good comparison of what we're talking about talent-wise. I think that the whole thing, if you're looking at Sermon, it's his college pedigree. OU, Oklahoma State, Ohio State. You're looking at somebody who's been playing for Power 5 schools. Look, Elijah Mitchell is fine, but you can see for yourself when you watch the tape. The two, they're not the same player, and Sermon is at some point Sermon is over. Will be these moments during the season where Mitchell looks really good, and people will say, "Oh, all these people who invested stocks into Sermon, they've done the wrong thing." But it's like Jonathan Taylor last year. The draft capital, and I know it's a completely different scenario. We're talking about difference, quite a bit of difference in the capital invested. But regardless, you're going to see Sermon, by the second half of the year, I believe he's going to be that 1A.
And what I'm going to find so interesting this year is watching his ADP develop when the redraft guys come into play. So at the moment, it's kind of only the dynasty guys, and I think he's going somewhere like in the 7th round of startup, 7th, 8th, maybe a little bit later. I just did one, and he went far earlier than I expected, but also I was looking for him, and I wasn't willing to pay that price for him. But I think now the redraft guys are going to be very interested. I'm not going to pay the price in redraft that I think he's going to be needed to draft, but for those that do say 0 RB and you can get him in the 5th or 6th, I think that's a great spot for him. But yeah, I'm not paying the price in redraft just because at Stanford I want to see how play out for. But for those that have him dynasty, man, I'm excited. I wanted him. I've been trying to trade up for him the last 2 months. I bought the 203 thinking I'd easily better flip the 203 to get into a spot and grab him, and I haven't been able to, and it's fucking frustrating me. But whoever gets him, I just think he's a great guy that you want sitting there. So his future excites me.
It most definitely does. I'm just having a quick look at what I had for his ADP have we got Dynasty? For Dynasty PPPR, we have got...
Look at my startup. He went like 7th.
82.5.
Yeah. So in your 12 teams,
I mean, you'd be looking... Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, look, he's an interesting one. He's somebody, if you're talking about redraft, I like him as an RB4. I probably wouldn't want to rely on him as my RB3. But, I do think it's not a bad idea for people to be picking up a rookie RB with a good potential. Like last year, I did it with J.K. Dobbins. This year, it's looking to be Trey Sermon in my dynasty leagues. Picking that person up as your RB4 by the end of the season, you're starting to watch them hit pay dirt.
100%. Another one that's quite interesting in terms of the redraft guys is the next guy that we're going to talk about, Javonte Williams. So Javonte Williams is the guy that you will know a little bit about. The Denver Broncos trade up a little bit to come and grab their guy. He's the guy that some people could have seen going earlier than Etienne, and some people might even argue that he's better than Harris. I think that was purely based on his ability to beat tackles. He has something like the highest rate of avoided defenders or something insane in college last year. And he's so freakishly athletic in terms of in the contact zone. The only problem is some of his metrics don't line up with what you see. So he's one of those guys in terms of like his profile stats, like his speed score, and like things like that don't set the world on fire, like his 40-yard dash. But like he's just one of those guys that seems like a natural footballer and can read plays and watch them unfold and play what's in front of him, which is super dangerous in terms of a defense, and it's super good to have on your team. The only problem is you're paying the price of a guy that's going to keep making plays, and taking that from the college level to the NFL level becomes a little bit different because you're no longer playing with people that won't play at the top level or some walk-ons. Like these are all straight killers on the defense. And it's just a little bit of a different game plan for me. I'm interested to see how it plays out with Gordon. I know Gordon's got a little bit left on his contract. I don't think he's there post. I think it's post this year. I think they'll just give the keys to Javonte. I think that's why they drafted him. But in terms of dynasty, like him, especially like him at the price you're getting at him, because I'd have him over the next guy, Etienne, in terms of the price-wise and value. But redraft, those that like playing redraft, have fun having a punt on him. It's not the sexy price that I sort of want to pay in him. You probably have to pay something like the fifth round, maybe earlier, maybe a little bit later. I'm not about to pay that for him. But I think that's where you're going to probably have to take him once the redraft guys come in, because things are coming out of camp and they're saying he's already ready to be the week 1 starter. But his stats, averaging 7.3 yards a carry, arguably better than most people's. Like I know everyone's on the Etienne bandwagon about the ACC stats and all that shit, but Javonte Williams was lighting it up. Had gains 170 yards, 120 yards, 160 yards, 150. Like he had 236 yards. These are only rushing as well. So not a massively great pass catcher. I guess that's also who he had in backfield with him. But like his rushing ability is nuts. And for me, it's not talked about enough. Even though I know people are talking about it, dude's a freak on the rushing side of it.
Yeah, and look, I mean, he was last year. I think he was PFF's highest rushing running back. So I mean, he had 95.9, which is almost unheard of. I mean, that's basically Nick Chubb from about a year or two ago. So that's really good. I guess what. If I think back to Javonte Williams, what I sort of learned of him last year, he popped up on my radar probably about September last year. Was keeping an eye, I guess, on that UNC team. Sam Howell, obviously Brown, Newsome, they were doing really well. But Williams was just really carving it up. And to be fair, I think one of the reasons that Brown and Newsome probably dropped down a little bit this year is because Williams and Carter did so well and they were able to lean on the run so much more. What I like about Williams is, you're not going to be taking him off on third down because he can pass block and he can catch.
Yeah.
He's actually a really good pass blocker. He actually had more passing snaps than running snaps, believe it or not, because of his pass blocking ability. So that's pretty good. I think, when I'm looking at, I guess if you just want to look purely at the tape, he had that mini Quake, highlight, which I think got a lot of people excited, because, he's 5'10", he's 220. Okay, I think it was a 4.55 40. But, if you look at somebody who a couple of years ago didn't test that well, and drop down, well, Dalvin Cook comes to mind.
Yeah.
And, and he did fantastically. So, Dalvin Cook, another ACC running back as well. Williams, I think the criticism that it comes to mind is that when he faced, as close to NFL talent as you get in the ACC with not Notre Dame, but against Notre Dame, he did badly. That was probably his worst games. He did really well against some of those teams like, Boston, Virginia Tech. And that's not to say Virginia
Miami,
Tech's
Florida
bad,
game's
but,
all good, though.
They don't have the best defense.
Miami, Florida aren't too bad generally. I know they don't set the light on fire the last few years, but they're like some of these teams aren't too bad. Like I know Duke is not like one of the elite football teams, but like Duke's still pumping out 12.6 yards per carry. And I know some of those would have come on big plays, which skyrocket their average, but like just like the 13 attempts, 12 attempts, like the game was locked up and he already had it. It's not like they gave him 20 and he had one big one. Like the dude only had like 12 rushes and still got 151 yards. You give him a NFL sort of workhorse volume, which I think he's going to get in Denver. If you're getting anywhere sort of near that and you're just excited and horny about that.
Yeah, I think what worries me is the 28 yards against Notre Dame. Kids he wasn't listed as a participant; he was listed as a starter for that.
Kids have off days.
That. Yep, and that's fair. That's fair. And everything else looks good. 54 yards against Virginia. That's a little bit concerning. But look, I guess the thing is, as you said, it's going to be different talent. The things that look good for the fit with Denver, that Denver offensive line, their O-line coach, Mike Munchak, who formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers fame, is fantastic. He's probably the best O-line coach, in the NFL at the moment. So I think there's opportunities there. I'm excited about that. You've got field stretches, so they won't be able to stack the box against them. So
who said field stretches?
In Denver,
yeah.
Judy, Sutton, Patrick.
I'm excited for Sutton. Gets me horny this year. Jude's is also an exciting one.
So and that's not even counting KJ Hamler. And personally, somebody who I'm surprised went as late as they did, Seth Williams. So there's lots of wide receiving talent. He only really needs to beat out an aging Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
So I would say he's in line for good things this year. I don't see why we couldn't start to see him maybe round 4, round 5 starting to assert some dominance.
Yeah, I think because reports are coming out that week 1 he'll be starter. I don't know. I think you'll just kind of just ride Melvin Gordon for maybe a few weeks. I think it'll be committee and then eventually he'll take over. I can also see Melvin Gordon. And I don't want Javonte and redraft just because I can see Gordon still taking some niggly carries away from him through the whole season. My only sort of worry is, you don't really know if Drew Lock's playing or if it's Teddy Bridgewater or Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers goes there, Javonte Williams skyrockets because everyone's scared of now Jude's and Sutton. The only problem with having great field stretches and catches in Sutton and Judy is the fact that the quarterback's still not terrifying. So if somehow I don't think Aaron Rodgers might go there anymore, but if they did, Javonte Williams for me becomes an actual guy that I'm looking to try and find in places. But I think he will be fine nonetheless. But my only sort of knock is, what does your quarterback situation look this year, and does it negatively affect him?
Bridgewater is still a lot safer. Yeah, exactly. He's not. I guess the thing is, Locke with his current ability will lose you games. Yeah. And you're not going to get that with Bridgewater. The Bridgewater is markedly, it sounds weird to say, but he's an improvement over Locke. So it's Bridgewater's job for the taking. From a statistically, and what he will enable that team to be able to do. Look, he's not going to. You're not going to have the splash plays, but that I don't think that matters when you've got a team that's talented, as talented as their wide receivers. He's probably going to be best for a player like Judy, because part of the problem that they had was that Judy and Locke were just so out of sync.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I'm excited. I'm interested to see how that pans out. Another one I'm interested to see pan out, more so because I've said to pretty much everyone, I do not want a piece of Etienne at all. I don't care how good he was. I don't even, sometimes I'm still trying to figure out why I don't like him, but I know I'm going to get a whole lot of hate and abuse from a few different people if he bangs and is the next Kamara. I'm still on the fence saying I don't think he will, but that's Travis Etienne. He went super close to Najee. Everyone was kind of interested in where he was going to go, and it was very interesting because you had all those people saying, no, J-Rob's an awesome running back. He was an absolute gem. No one's going to draft a running back. And we had people out there like you and I were saying I would not go against the fact that they could draft a running back. No, but he got the most yards as a rookie and all this shit. And then they drafted the running back, and J-Rob owners cried and everyone else just laughed, and that was about it. It was weird whether you own him or not. It was interesting and weird, and you kind of have to just give it to the fact that they also got their generational talent quarterback and Trevor Lawrence, and they wouldn't have paired him up with his bud. And if they can have any sort of combination like they did in college, they'll be super formidable.
Exactly.
And if they didn't draft Trevor, I don't think they grab Etienne here. I think it was just one of Coach Meyer's plays, and it's what it is. There's no denying the stats he put up in college or ACC, and pretty much holds so many records. It's insane, and we keep hearing about the different stats he has. I'm not entirely sure what it is that I don't. People that are that high is a fall. It's a very, very large fall from grace, and the price that you have to pay to go get him, I think I'd just rather take a punt on Sermon and someone else, or even Javonte and get a tiny piece. But people out there love him, and I completely see why. The tape's quite nice. He's just, and even his metrics are quite nice. His pro day was nice. He was quick. Like he's like his best comparable is DeAndre Swift. I just think it's funny that I also am not a big DeAndre Swift truther. So I think it's the play style for me. I love as a running back on Dynasty and even redraft, I love my guaranteed volume on the ground. That's where I think running backs make the most work. Ones that you want to give the ball on the goal line to. That's what gets me excited, and guys that I want to have on my team. I'm guaranteed the carries, that sort of stuff. And for the same reason I don't necessarily like Swift, because he's like he's a prototypical college player, right? Like they're good at pretty much everything. They can catch the ball, they can run the ball. I just give me that sexy, just run hard, run straight, run over people sort of blokes. I think that's why I probably don't like them as much as I like others. But hey, if you want to go get him, go get your guy. I can see why. It's probably highlights are insane, but yeah, that's just on the fence about him.
Yeah, look, I guess just to your point, Swift is a really, really interesting one because, from a PPR point of view, you're looking at somebody who looks so fantastic. That Detroit team is going to be behind, so you'd be expecting they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. They're talking about him lining up in the slot. But, a lesson that I've learned over time is don't invest in running backs on shitty teams. Like, it's just, cardinal rules, invest in running backs that get volume on winning teams.
Yep.
Wide receivers, okay, they can have a crappy defense, but, I'm not going to be recommending anybody go ahead and get a lead running back, an RB1, an RB2 that's on a crappy team. That's not clever play when you think about what you need from your running backs. So Etienne is a really interesting one because his college career, every single year could almost have been treated as though a completely different year. You had that 2018, you had that meteoric rise, for him, for Lawrence. I think there was a point at that year that probably he finished that year, and it was really apparent, that he couldn't catch the ball. He just couldn't. And he had said that he was afraid to catch the ball. You didn't want the ball thrown to him. So he finished that 2018 season. He made a conscious decision to go and work on that. And he really did. He came away and he wanted to get good at it. 2020, it's just so interesting because, he'd actually gone from being a top 8 and a top 10 rusher to, he was ranked 40th. Yeah, and he just became a scat back is almost what people were thinking. He's just a passing receiver. And so that's where I think, if you treat him like that, you're probably going to you're going to underestimate his abilities. Meyer I saw the most bizarre heading with Meyer saying, Urban Meyer now starting to see glimpses of Etienne's Clemson form, maybe more than a third
funny.
down
As if he wasn't just
like,
in college like 4 months ago. Yeah, there was
that exactly. Too. And it just was, so funny. I think Etienne will be. He's got a good opportunity. We'll see how they use him. J-Rob owners, unfortunately, look, the only one that I know, I've been making, phone calls around the clock just to check on their well-being. Obviously, it's been a really tough time. I think I even feel worse because I think I was somebody who traded J-Rob away. So there's a bit of guilt there, obviously.
On that though, while I know first round running backs you don't draft them there to be like a wide receiver and that shit. I think there's something to be said for. I don't think he's going to be a workhorse guy. I don't think he has I'm just not sure he sort of has the ability to be that. 5'10", 215 suggests he should. Just the way that he played in the back end of that. Of his college career, who is catching the ball lots. I think that's the type of sort of guy I think that they'll be. I think he'll be very much like DeAndre Swift, but I think that there's a place for J-Rob to be in there as the thumper. I think everyone knows that he's a thumper, and the only reason he was any good is because of the volume he had, and he was getting his efficiency was insanely through the roof. I don't think they're going to kick J-Rob to the curb. I think he's going to be a fine flex play, and I think he will get his opportunities, but obviously his ceiling's just insanely low and his floor's so low. I think people are going super far as to thinking that Etienne's going to come straight in and just take it over, and J-Rob's going to be gone, and they have no invested interest in him. I think they'll find a place for him. I'm just not entirely sure how much it is, and if you can get him cheap enough, take a punt on him. But that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, you also just touched on the weight of Etienne, which is a little bit contentious because, I mean, that was not a lean 215. That was a cheeseburger 215.
Yeah, and he won't be that come NFL season.
No.
So I don't think his body
he's going to be more like 205.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like you really want to put him in the situation where you ask him to do what he sort of did at Clemson, and even at Clemson, he had. During 2018 and 19 was peak carries were 204 and 207. And I know that we've seen players far higher than that. So, I think he'll be a second, third down back. And I think J-Rob steals some first downs, and I think he also steals some goal line carries. So take that with what you will. But I think there's a place for both of them. I want neither of them, but I don't know. I think it's going to be a very interesting one to watch through the season, especially if Etienne does nothing, and those Jags fans are going to be crying to get J-Rob back on that field. So,
I mean, I can tell you right now. I mean, I don't think there's any reality where he does nothing because, he's coupled with his college quarterback. He's the safety valve. So, if things start going badly for Lawrence, he's going to be looking for Etienne.
Yeah, bail out.
Yeah.
Now, the last guy on our list is old Najee Harris. Now, this is the guy. Obviously, you can't get him cheap, and his value is kind of just through the roof. So, I won't have him in any leagues, unfortunately. But this is the one guy that, and it's pretty obvious workhorse role written all over him in Pittsburgh. I'm nowhere near paying the price. What he did at Bama was insane. So we just talked about the usage of Travis Etienne and his carries. So to put in perspective, I think Etienne had 205 in his his high in 2019, whatever it is. Well, Najee had 251 last year, and pretty similar catching numbers. But
touches?
No, rushes.
Yeah.
Rushes.
So 294 touches last season as well, which is so, like, just that's huge.
Workhorse role written over, just like super sexy if he landed anywhere else. And I know that Pittsburgh were likely going to take him because they needed a running back and all that sort of stuff. That's fine. There's no not predicting the fact that he could have gone to Pittsburgh. My only problem is at that spot, I won't be having any shares in him purely because I just he's gone from Bama where every single person in that Bama O-line got drafted. Like, it was insane how they just keep going Bama O-line, Bama O-line, Bama O-line, and keep getting drafted. And that O-line was nuts. And I think some of them did get drafted because of what was happening behind it, and it made them look a little bit better than they were. And I think there's a few players in there that definitely got reached for. But nonetheless, they all got drafted, and that was a insane good O-line. And he now goes to Pittsburgh where there's sweet fuck all of O-line. So, and then also Big Ben's aging, and we don't really know what the next post looks like. So if you get, for example, like Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins, or quarterback there, you load the box with a terrible O-line and just get the fuck in the backfield and scare them. So that sort of worries me. As if I were to be an owner, I'm not. But his tape looks nuts. He's so athletic. Like, he's going to be the one guy that you guarantee is a workhorse role there. And the only problem with that long-term wise is his age. He's like 23 already, which means he's going to have to shoot the lights out to get a second contract. I'm not sold on the fact that he would because of his age, but hey, like, we're seeing crazy things happen. He could invest a whole lot in the O-line and get him something to run behind, and he'll buy a second contract. Anywhere else, I would sell the farm to go and get him. Like, for example, if he was running behind the Denver O-line, give me all the fucking shares. Just worries. Like, there's just too many worries for me to pay that price. You know what I mean? Like, the value to where I think he's going to sit is just not me. I'd rather someone else take the punt on him.
Yeah, look, from a dynasty perspective, I think he's almost undisputed 101. A lot of people might be leaning Chase, but running backs are just so valuable. So I guess what we know about Pittsburgh is that they do love this idea of having a workhorse running back. We know that they, for the most part, even when it's been an ailing James Conner, they've been worth having a piece of. So, for what you're probably looking at is dynasty. It might be a little bit like a Jonathan Taylor situation where the investment starts to pay itself off towards the end of this year. I think you're going to see enough telltale signs to say, hey, look, things are going to be good early on, which will mean that people aren't trading him away, but you're not really going to be able to capitalize on that. And I don't think he's going to be winning leagues for people until the end of the season. Now, in a redraft situation, people are getting really excited about him, and it's looking like he could be a second rounder.
Oh, like he's already there. Like, people are already taking him at the back end of the second, and I don't not see a situation where people are going to start when they start coming in early. I won't be me. I tell you what, I won't be shooting the ADP up, but someone will be.
Yeah, he will. Look, he's definitely going to be a second round. I think I watched an interesting video today, which was Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, or Joe Mixon. So, those.
I'm not giving away where I'm going, but
yeah. But look, at the end of the day, I guess the point is that's the question that people are now asking in June. Yeah. So wait till a couple preseason games come out, because he will do well in those. people will see enough of what they want to. Don't be surprised if he goes up to the mid-second. Look, again, I don't know if he's going to be winning people leagues up until the end of the season. I think he's going to be good. I think people are going to be excited. But, you have highlighted the issues with Pittsburgh. And those are things, again, that, it's a bit like those telltale signs, like, James Robbins at the end of last year and why he was a sell at the end of last year. So, it's a different scenario, but you're still seeing those things, which we all know as, as fantasy owners, dynasty gamers, to be aware of, bad O-line, aging QB, the defense is a good defense, but, they're going to have to figure out, I think the other thing as well, for the most part.
They're going to catch.
They're going to pass. But here's the other thing. They're a pass first offense as well.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't normally go and say, "Oh, yeah, that's the right thing, the right thing for me to invest in." But on the flip side to that, they have been good for running backs over the years.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think that they will, like that. They've got so many wide receivers. They're gonna pass the ball, and Big Ben, that's kind of his steez. And the only reason that I know that that you mentioned Pittsburgh running backs have been valuable to have is because of the fact that they've had a workhorse. If they didn't have a workhorse sort of guy, then it wouldn't be any worth having. And so I think, it's just the price. And I think you nailed it. I don't think he's going to win anyone leagues this year at his price. So like the sort of ranges that I honestly think he'll get up to, and you mentioned it there, was I think he's going to start getting up to the Mixons, the Ecklers, like that sort of. Yeah. I think people are going to get so horny that what they're going to see and all these tweets are going to come out. They're going to see all these highlights that they're going to get up to that point. And the difference for me between that tier break is, okay, well, what's the downside here? So like, what's the floor and where's the ceiling? Now, Najee's ceiling is insanely through the roof. I don't think it's this year. And I think you nailed it there with the JT comparison with the Mac sort of situation was his restriction. I think, Najee's restriction is his O-line and the fact that they've got so many pass catches there. The only reason JT shot through the roof to what was it, like RB6 or something, was because he had like bangers the whole way home when Mac got hurt. And he had those massive games against like terrible run defenses. So and like that's why like Monty shot through the roof too. And I don't, that for me is the worry with Pittsburgh. I think I just don't like his cons for me are the reason why I won't be paying the price I will. For people, and you mentioned the density there of the consensus 101. I think it's a super interesting thing. Like I've seen so many people out there, and definitely tight end premium leagues where Pitts goes one, and I think I've seen heaps where even non-tight end premium, they take him because he's generational talent. And just on that, if he's anything but Kelsey and you're giving him there, then you're in a shitload of trouble fast. So won't be me, but also Chase. Chase for me is the rebuild one. Najee for me is the compete now, more so because of the worries about the second contract, but also he's going to be a guy that you're not going to see massive thing here. If you take him there, for me, you're looking for him to bang year one, and then you kind of look to offload him for multiple picks if you're starting to rebuild. But exciting talent, like so athletic. He's by far the best running back in this year for me. It's just if he had gone in other places, I'd be so excited for him and would be taking him in redraft. It's probably not my price to pay.
And to be fair, if he declared last year like the plan was, it would have been a completely different story. Because I mean, if you think to what spots. The 2000. Well, that was meant to be, the players who were meant to be in the 2020 draft were meant to be Etienne, Chuba Hubbard, Najee Harris, and they were all of those, even Puka Williams, those guys went back. And to be fair, I would almost say for probably, maybe not so much Etienne. I think Etienne was a little bit of a hold. Harris had increased his stock, but Hubbard and Hubbard, Massively. Oh my God, Williams dropped off, and I mean Williams looked fantastic at the end of the 2019 season, but
Yeah, and that's what
that
we
all
talked about
changed.
in the last podcast we did, of
Yeah,
particularly the one you said, the Tuba Hubbard. If he'd come out, he was second round, written all over him.
yeah, yeah,
Just one of those things, and it sucks. And I would have loved to have seen that unfold last year with the JTs and the CHs, because
yeah,
I don't think CH at that point goes to Kansas City. And yeah, it would have been super interesting.
yeah.
It's a good class. The only reason for me, Etienne and Etienne and Sermon and stuff here is just because of the fact that it's a weak class.
Yeah,
It's just a weak class, and sort of the top echelon for like league winners is just like you're gonna have. It's beggars can't be choosers at this point. Like there's two guys, and then there's a fucking fall off, and you can't, like, all that's going to happen is there's going to be, like, we're talking about Michael Carter here being a first round pick in rookie drafts.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, that's just worrying, but it's going to happen. And there'll be four guys that'll go in the first, or four running backs for me that'll go in the first 2 rounds. Like that's like last year, it was like 4 in the space of the first 5 picks. Whereas this year, it's going to go like, there's going to 4 guys. There's going to be Najee, Etienne, Sermon, and Carter, and the rest are just going to be quarterbacks and wide receivers and tight ends.
yeah, yeah. And if you think this year's bad, wait until next year.
Yeah, well, that's why I already get in the 2023 picks, baby. Let's get the whole class.
Exactly. Yeah, well, that would be wise. Look, I mean, 2022. Don't be looking to get your running back from that class.
No, Brees Hall and Isaiah Spiller in the first 2 picks, and if you have anything else, then sorry.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Harris, Max Borgi might do something interesting. Zonovan Knight, maybe.
They'll be guys just because they need to be guys, because they have to get
Yeah,
drafted,
they will be.
and that'll be it.
They will
But
be.
yeah, no, that's a super good rundown of the top 4 running backs. That's kind of what we think of the top 4. Interested to know what other people think around that. That's just one idiot's thoughts, and then one guy with all the stats and subscriptions on Jordan. So thank you for joining me once again. We'll try and catch up and get together about the wide receivers, because there's a lot more to talk about the wide receivers and a lot more different landing spots.
Yeah, definitely, and and I think again, we've probably, I guess, covered off a whole. I guess our views of what these things are going to look like. Who knows what it'll be like come the actual season? If you follow ramblings of one guy in one of our leagues, he'll tell you don't worry about what Rees is telling you. His team, what his players are going to do. So it'll be see what actually happens this season.
Yeah, we'll catch up before the before redraft sort of season rolls around, and how that sort of all these ACL tears in the off season sort of unplay, and the Trey Sermons scoot through the roof. Thank you very much.